our Deuteronomy, our 1 Corinthians, and our Matthew reading talk about our community, the community that God creates with us. And they talk about ways in which our individual lives and actions play a role in the life and the health of the community of believers. In Deuteronomy, we hear in verse 16, "If you obey the commandments of the Lord your God, then you shall live and become numerous, and the Lord your God will bless you in the land that you are entering to possess." Choose life, it continues in verse 19, "so that you and your descendants may live loving the Lord your God, obeying him and holding fast to him." So in this reading, Moses, speaking to the people, is calling them to choose life. He's calling them to obey the commandments of God. And he's not doing this necessarily so that each one as an individual might benefit, but so that the community might benefit. If we follow God's call for our lives, then we shall live and become numerous. If we choose life, that life is not just life for us, but for the community. And sometimes choosing that life, the life of the community, may be a difficult choice for us to make as an individual. But still, this is what we are called to do. Then in 1 Corinthians, we hear at the very end, after we're called children, incapable of eating solid food. But at the end, Paul says in verse 9, "For we are God's servants working together. You are God's field, God's building." We are God's servants working together. And if we are a building, then all parts of the building need to be in good shape. A few years ago, my husband's church found out that their roof was in trouble. It had, I don't remember how many, and I'm probably going to get the words wrong, but I think trusses that hold the roof up. And several of them, not all of them, but several of them were failing. And I think ours is fine. I don't want to get nervous right now thinking about roofs falling in. But several of the trusses, and enough of them, were failing that even though there were some that were in and of themselves as individuals perfectly fine, the building wasn't going to stand much longer without some work. And they were able to do the work, and the church still stands, which is good. But we are God's servants working together, and we are God's building. Just because one of us in our own lives as an individual is doing just fine doesn't mean the community is healthy. It doesn't mean the community is whole. We need to care for each other to make sure that our building, God's building in our community, is structurally sound. And then finally, in our Matthew reading, we hear all sorts of rules or interpretations of rules about how we must be accountable to each other and to the community. The first section there talks about when you come to the altar to offer your gift, when you come to worship on Sunday morning. If you suddenly remember that someone has something against you, that you owe a debt, you should go quickly and settle that debt. I'll wait here for anyone who No? Okay, good. So even when we are in worship, we cannot forget the relationships we have outside of this place. These readings this morning are all about remembering that there is a balance between our individual well-being, our individual security, our individual happiness and health, and those things in the community. And that balance is weighted heavier towards the community. When our community is healthy, when our community is reconciled to each other and all in good shape, then when one of us is found to be in need of some work, the community is strong enough to support that person. Last night at bedtime, I sat down on Tucker's bed to read a story and heard a crack, which is great for your self-esteem. And I looked under the bed, and it's like a platform bed, with just a mattress on these wood slats. One of the slats had broken, right where I sat down. But it cracked, in my defense, where there was like a knot in the wood. It was a weak spot, okay? And it's also a spot where Tucker jumps a lot. So he had loosened the lid of the jar, so to speak, So Tucker became very concerned that he was going to fall, his mattress was going to fall to the floor, which is like 12 inches. So worst case scenario was not that bad, but he was really worried. He didn't want to lay in his bed. So we lay down on the floor and looked under his bed, and we counted all of the slats that weren't broken. There were 13 slats that weren't broken, and one that was broken. Yeah, it's like a really well reinforced, it's a kid's bed, so I think they knew what they were doing when they built it. And I said to him, as I say to you, that one slat can easily be fixed. And the community of slats can hold up the bed in the meantime as that one gets repaired, hopefully later today. But this is what we need to remember from these readings, that we are called to be in community. I think you've heard me say this before. In baptism, we are made brothers and sisters, and we are called to care for each other. And these readings remind us of that today, that just because we might feel secure in our individual lives, we need to remember that there is more than just I or me, that there is we as a body of Christ, as a community, as a church. And as long as all of us are healthy and all of us are helping each other be healthy, this building of God's will never fall. Amen.